Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammell, and special guests.
We are all smiles today. Welcome, everybody. Talking Memphis Wrestling, and we were tricked. We were fooled. They lied to us. They said a couple of weeks ago the hot weather was gone bye-bye, but it came hello, and it was here today in Jonesboro, Arkansas, where my story began because it got up to 103 degrees heat index. Now, a guy that says, hello, everybody, is Randy West, my friend, who I've talked to on the phone 2 times today, but is certainly a thrill every time Randy West is on this show. Another thrill is everything the First Lady of Talking Memphis Wrestling, Panetta, from over the pond in Thailand. Hello, what is going on with you? A huge, huge, huge show today. So much to talk about. I'll preview it real quick. We will deep dive in to the absolute first professional wrestling run, and the run was, like so many others, in Memphis, Tennessee. We will deep dive into Flex Kavana. Now, who was Flex Kavana? Well, now Adam put that picture up, and you know who Flex Kavana is. It is Dwayne Johnson. It is The Rock, and we will deep dive, and hopefully, if there's The Rock, there's Flex Kavana as USWA Tag Team Champions with Bart Sawyer. We will deep dive, tell you all about it today on this program. Now, also today is I have to look at my notes real quick to see what else we're going to talk about today. We will talk about the best of last week's television wrestling, the worst of last week's television wrestling. We will update on the AEW turmoil. Then we will talk my thoughts on Chris Jericho. We will certainly talk about pro wrestling's top stables. We will talk about the PWI, the Pro Wrestling Illustrated Top 500. That episode came out last week. Also, we'll talk about the best of Memphis in the 80s and the 90s. So it's a big show, and we will welcome to the show the co-host. And for right now, he's all I got, people, but I'll take him in a heartbeat. My friend Pat Trammell, what is going on with you, my man?
Hello, everybody. Good to see you today.
How's everything in your life?
Everything's fine. Guess where I am? You ready? See if we can guess where I am tonight.
Thank goodness we're not on YouTube.
I bet you couldn't hear that.
No, but we're good.
I was playing the song Ramblin' Man. You're right, Gail. I'm at the hotel. Not doing anything untoward. I'm in Macon, Georgia, the home of the Allman Brothers.
Home of the Allman Brothers. I want to say hello to my friend Crazy Gail. Again, to Panetta. Greg Pill is in the house. Also, Frank Seaton is saying hello to me and Pat both. And certainly we have Robert in the house, and so many people commenting, and I have to look up and see if I missed anybody. And I think we pretty much got everybody. I'm certainly glad Randy West is in the house as we deep dive in to the Rock Flex Kavana's run in Memphis. Before we go, how was your week last week, Pat, my man? What did you go on? What excitement happened to you during this past week?
Nothing real exciting. We're moving offices moving offices tomorrow, so I'm glad I'm in Macon, Georgia. And where our merger's going well, and everything's fine. I saw Meg for her first rowing meet Saturday morning in Chattanooga, so I was pleased with that. So things are good in Birmingham, Chattanooga, Macon, all points, all points east, my friend.
Brooks is in the house. I want to say hello to Brooks. He says hi to both of us, and Mike's in the house as well. Just to prove, he certainly produces this program every Tuesday. Rarely he's on here, but I want to prove the fact that he's in Studio A, Master Control A. He is in the main gimmick, the main studio that controls this here thing. And Adam's going to say hello to everybody right now.
Everybody, glad to be here. Normally I just produce the show, but yep, I'm in the master control this evening. So I know Randy's a little light on having co-hosts tonight, so I may jump in from time to time as it warrants. But glad to be here tonight, Randy.
Now, Pat, as we put you back on the screen, and I'll ask the question because you watch a lot of Memphis wrestling, and the time period we're talking about is May to August of 1996. I don't know how much of that you have watched, but the debut of Flex Kavana, obviously we all know who Flex Kavana ended up. Have you, do you know anything about this era of Memphis wrestling, Pat?
I do
The
know I
Rock.
do know something about that, Aaron. I've gone back and watched it pretty much at length because I'm always interested in to see how people develop. And one of the exciting things to me in Memphis is watching how Jeff developed, and we've watched on multiple occasions here his work as a referee, and then uh, the big angle, and with Dutch and Jerry, and I like to see how people develop, and obviously, you know, the Rock's whole entire family has deep, deep ties to Memphis wrestling, but by virtue of his dad and he being in the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. So, I've got a question for you. When did you first know Dwayne?
I was thinking about that earlier. I might have met him a time or two when he was pretty young. And in 1976, he would have been 6 years, or he'd have been 4 years old. I don't have great memories of that, but it was a possibility. In 1987, when Rocky Johnson came back and worked for us in the CWA era, he was here 87, parts of 88, and the Rock was 15 years old. Dwayne was 15 years old. He traveled a lot with downtown Bruno. Obviously, he is very nice to Bruno these days, and that's why, for sure, Rocky Johnson and Bruno were great friends. But certainly, as a 15-year-old kid, I'm thinking, who's this grown ass man in my dressing room? He looked like a grown ass man at 15 years old, had a mustache, the whole thing, and he had charisma galore, absolutely galore. Now, would I say, Pat, that the first time I saw him wrestle in May of 1996, would I think that he, all these years later, would be the hottest movie star in the country and one of the greatest WWF champions of the WWF superstars of all time? Did I predict that? I predicted he would be a big star and make a lot of money. How in the world can anybody predict, Pat, that he would be as successful as he is now?
Well, he can thank Vince for that because I mean, as you know, and I don't know, was he the first wrestler to make the transition to Hollywood? As far as you know,
Was Hogan did a couple of things before Rock did. He was certainly the first person to be successful at it. That's for sure. There's no doubt about that. And look, John Cena's had some success since, and Batista had some success, and Steve Austin had some success. I think there's others along the way, but certainly The Rock, man. He just got ties. And we'll go ahead and do a little background now, and we'll throw some pictures up there as we do it. The Rock was born in California on May the 2nd, 1972. He is currently 50 years old. He made his TV debut in Memphis TV5 on May the 25th, 1996. We'll see that. Hopefully, if we can get the video to work right, we've had 2 or 3 bad weeks of doing that. Hopefully, we'll be able to see his first TV match ever, Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee against Flex Kavana, The Rock, and Brian Christopher. And we'll see that in just a few minutes. So that was his beginning in May, and then he became USWA Tag Team Champions, Pat, with Bart Sawyer, and they had a run with different people, including Reggie Fine and Brickhouse Brown. They made a great tag team. Going on to other dates, he debuted in the WWF on Raw on November the 4th, 1996. February 1997, he defeated Triple H for the Intercontinental title. November 98, he won the world title, the WWF world title, for the very first time. He defeated Mick Foley. Now, he was signed in 1976, stayed there for about 8 years. He, in late of 2004, his contract expired and he left for the movies. He's going to the movies. And he was successful there. Any surprises about that background that I just laid out to you? And hopefully everybody else that's enjoying this show, and Al Toto in the house as well. Hello, Al. I salute you for watching today, and I salute everybody. What did you think about that background information, Pat Trammell?
Well, it was interesting. It got started a little earlier than I thought, and I want to make a real quick comment. And Ahmad, hello, my brother. And I want to say just hello to everybody that tunes in every week. I don't. One of the things I wish that this program had was the ability for the people that are in the back room and on the screen to reply to your messages, but unfortunately it don't. But don't think I don't know you there, and don't think we don't appreciate you. I thought Rock came a little earlier. Now, some reason I thought he came to Power Pro as a as a you know an up and comer, and I thought you had named him Flex Kavana, and I thought you
No,
hated that name.
yes, I did hate that name. And that's why I dadgum sure. Do you think I seem like the type of just pulling out of my hat the name Flex Kavana? That is a name Vince McMahon through Jim Ross said go with. I hated it from the get go. I wanted to give a little more background information. He went to the University of Miami. He was numbered 94. He was there from 90 to 94. He was a defensive tackle. He was the national champions. University of Miami were in 1991. He was a part of that team, but he was overshadowed by a hurricane by the name of Sap. You ever heard of him?
Yeah,
I
I've
believe the
heard of
feller's
him.
name was
I
Sap.
one of uh, one of Alabama's many national championships was in 1992. When Miami was favored 17, and I think Alabama beat them 37-6 or something. But I remember watching that game, and I remember looking for Dwayne during the game. So I mean, he was a really good Division I football player. I don't think he was good enough to get a look at the NFL, which is probably better for him because
Oh yeah.
he would have
Look at him
CTE now.
now.
Yeah, it's worked out okay for the kid.
Now, he did play for the Canadian Football League. He did do that. I want to say myself, Pat already did, say hello to Ahmad, say hello to my man Andrew Calvin Jr., certainly Greg in the house today, and we've already mentioned Brooks, and we mentioned my buddy Al. Again, I appreciate everybody watching this. One quick thing that I want to ask help on is that maybe a year ago, because of stupid copyright and all kinds of things, violations, I lost my YouTube channel. Well, I have a new one. It's under Randall Hales, Randall, Randall Hales. And everybody, if you would, and Adam just posted the link there. If you click on it, if you would subscribe to it, because I cannot go live on YouTube until that I get a certain amount of subscribers. So if everybody watching this show today would please go to the new Randall Hales YouTube channel that Adam has put the link on there, and if you could hook me up. And then after at least within a daytime, maybe as soon as our shows go off the air, I want to keep a archive that's convenient to get to. So I already uploaded yesterday's Talking Power Pro Wrestling, the Power Pro Watch Party, and then every show we do, I'll put them up there. So if you miss the live feed, you can certainly go to YouTube, and it will be in the archive. I want to ask Pat a question. Pat, come on in here. Come on in here, Pat. Get on the screen. Don't take your time. Yeah, here you go. You're on the thing. Are you ready to see The Rock's very first ever television match?
I am ready. Let's go.
Now,
Ring the bell.
well, we're going to delay Mr. Coffee a little bit because I want to explain to everybody 2 weeks in a row we had issues. If we have issues this week, I'm coming out of it immediately because that's bad television. So, folks, I hope to bring you this. If I don't, you know why, because it's freezing up. Let's try it. Cross your fingers, Pat. Cross your fingers, Adam. Cross your fingers, everybody. Here we go.
There it is, the King picking up the USWA heavyweight title, and not only has he got that, he's the co-holder of the tag team titles too, with the superstar Bill Dundee. They're going to be defending right in here in just a moment before they get to the ring. Out, here he is, the superstar Bill Dundee. Billy, and the King carrying out that big belt, and I got to tell you, I came back to town. I'm gone a couple of weeks. I come back to town. I'm stunned to find Lawler and Dundee together again with the titles. I just couldn't hardly believe it. Unbelievable.
What is unbelievable about Lawler and Dundee being champions?
Well, I'm just
champions, Lance.
I understand. Hey, now I got to tell you, I got to add one other thing. I talked to some of the wrestling fans since I've been back a couple of days, and I heard a few of them talking about some of the tactics and some of the things that were used. That Bill used a chain in order for you guys to win that.
Now, I heard that. I heard that, and I was really upset about that, Lance. But I went back, I looked at the tape, I reviewed it, and I got to admit the camera angle was not the best, but I saw no chain. I didn't see a chain.
So you got the titles, and that's all that matters, right?
Bill assured me he didn't use a chain.
No, I didn't use a chain. Well, let me ask you this. How are we always the bad guys around here? We've been here forever. I mean, it's just like, and nobody said this a long time to you.
Hey.
Mr. Banana Nose, let me ask you something. When Frank Morrell had a heart attack and they stole his belt, did he whinge and cry? No, he just took it like a man, come out and won another belt.
Well, you have a point there, but
I have a point.
it's not a question so much. You guys have had your good times and bad times together. I was just stunned to see you back together. Not that you had the titles, because we've all known greatest tag team that we've seen around here in a lot of years. And one of the good things about it, I will give you credit for this, guys, you're going to defend it right here today against a pretty substantial team, or what could be. You're going against Brian Christopher and Flex Kavana. Now, I don't know Kavana. You may, well, that's his name. And let me tell you one thing. You know how the word gets around in the wrestling business or in a lot of other businesses. I have heard this guy.
On a hotline or something like that?
On the hotline, they're all talking. What I'm telling you, they say this guy is one of the great things coming down the pike.
I've heard a little bit about him. I heard he's nice-looking kid, got a lot of muscles. but I also heard the biggest muscle he's got is right between his ears. So I don't think that Bill and I will have any problem. Sure, there's a lot of guys. Hey, look at Brian Christopher. You know, he's all flexed up, Flex Kavana and all these guys. They got a lot of muscle. Hey, you know what? What Bill and I lack in the physique department, we more than make up for in the mental department, brother. We've forgotten more wrestling than Brian Chris will ever know in their entire lifetime.
Absolutely,
so it should be no
Alfredo.
problem.
Well, that's what we're going to be finding out.
That's what I'm just going to tell you this, and I've said it for years. Wrestling is physical chess. When you make a mistake, the king of the superstar is going to capitalize, and that's all there is about that, and we keeping their belts.
You guys head to the ring, and we're looking forward to the tag title. The absolute tag champions, the King, Jerry Lawler, and superstar Bill Dundee. Corey Macklin's the man right now.
Okay, Lancer, let's do it. Ready today, it's a USWA Tag Team Title Match. First introducing the current holders of the USWA Tag Team titles. Coming in today at a combined weight of 441 pounds. From Australia, the superstar, Bill Dundee. And his partner wrestling out of Memphis, Tennessee.
Everything's going real good, Richard, and this is starting messing up again, but we'll stick with it, Adam, because it's not messed up bad.
Holders of the tag team titles. Their opponents today coming in at a combined weight of 495 pounds. From Memphis, Tennessee, Too Sexy, Brian Christopher. And his partner making his very first appearance here in the USWA from the islands of Hawaii. Here is Flex Kavana. Flex Kavana. We're ready for action. Bill Rush.
I believe this dude looks like a star. What do you think?
You know, he does look a lot different than he did in his WWE glory days.
Christopher Flex Kavana.
Dave, real quick before we get this match started, I just wanted to come over here and introduce you, and introduce Lance, and introduce all the fans to this man right here. This is Flex Kavana, baby. Oh, yeah. Now get ready. Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, I heard what you said. This man heard what you said. You said that you make up for the lack of big muscles with your ability. Will you make up for the lack of big muscles with your big fat mouths? And me and Flex are gonna shut them for you today, and we're walking out of here the new USWA Tag Team Champions.
You know, it's as simple as this. It's very short, quick, and simple. We're very naughty by nature, and we're very violent by decision. You know what? I'm done talking. Get ready, because here we come.
There they go, headed for the ring. Flex Kavana from Hawaii. Brian Christopher, you know him well. You also know the champion, the superstar, and the king. This one has the makings of a real match here for the USWA today. Tag titles are on the line.
We also got a little edge put on it with Lawler and Dundee making their comments about the lack of mental abilities of their two opponents and turning right around, not being the shy and retiring one. Too Sexy Brian Christopher says, you make up for it with your big mouth. That's what you do. I'm looking forward to this one, Dave.
Oh, ought to be a good one. Lawler starting for the team of Lawler and Dundee.
In a Missouri Spud show the night before, I was not there. Whoopi D called me and asked me if the Rock was on, or Flex was on television the next morning. I said, absolutely. He said, you got to take it off. I said, I just watch this match. It's the worst wrestler I've ever seen.
We'll see what happens.
I believe you got that wrong, Bat. Do you think?
I think the kid's done okay.
No,
He managed to make a living. Lawler and Dundee as the heels. They're both
treating
full
Brian big
tilt
time.
is Brian Christopher as he handled Lawler and Dundee consecutively. And we haven't even seen that big strapping guy that's his partner, Flex Kavana. Heard a lot about him. Be interested to see him the first time he gets into action.
Well,
Frank said he kept it short and sweet before he really learned his mic skills, and just as far as wrestling
stepped into the ring,
skills is concerned,
showing
as
it here
far as I
today.
know,
He has had
this
all
was
kinds of championship belts
I
himself.
think it's
No stranger to
absolutely.
titles.
This might
And he
be
and his partner, he feels
maybe he's
even more
had 3 or
confident
4
with
matches
Flex
before.
Kavana
He
standing
wrestled
over
the
his
night before in
corner as his
Missouri,
partner today.
and this was
As they
absolutely
go
his
for the
first
tag team
TV.
titles. Well, now there is
Brian,
something
as
that
the
maybe
veteran,
could be described
Brian
as an attention
started
getter
wrestling
for
about
Brian.
1990. He's
As
been wrestling
Lawler
about
just
6
jumped and
years.
slammed him
This
right in
is
the
the
center of the
rookie
ring.
year for
After the
Dwayne
early
Johnson.
opening that he had
Go
so
Rock.
successful, that was kind of a
This
wake-up
is
call.
mind-blowing,
Lawler
everybody.
beat him to the
Mind-blowing.
snatch and grab, picked him
For
right
sure,
up and slammed
100%.
him down. And back
How
they
far it
tangled it
came.
up, collar and elbow, back to the
Because
corner.
you can name 10,000 wrestlers. You will
Diagonally
find
across the
one
ring. Hooks that arm and
that had more
RVD hit
success
Austin right
outside
out in the
wrestling
middle.
than this guy. Can you?
Christopher looking strong.
Can you, Pat?
Lawler a little disgusted. The
No, really
referee
can't.
checking with Brian
Can't
to
argue
see
with that.
what happened, because he has been informed by the team of Lawler and Dundee that Christopher pulled tight.
We hope to have Michael
That's
St.
what
John
Dundee is saying.
within the next few minutes.
They tie it up again. Back in the corner. Lawler with the advantage. He whips him across the way into the turnbuckle.
Right.
Oh, Christopher blocked.
Good clothesline there. Absolutely
Hey,
fantastic.
that short
What a
clothesline
hell
took
of a
him right
match.
down to the
Now, I
mat.
don't have a format in front of me, so I
Dundee
have
had
no
wandered
idea
into the
how
ring.
early
Brian said, "Hey,
in the
I'm
show
ready with a super
this
kick
match
anytime you're
was.
ready
It
to
could
head
have
this
been the
way."
main event.
Dundee
Because
back out on the
I think I
apron.
heard Brian say
Referee Bill
that this
Rush
was
trying to
for
get him to
the
settle down now and stay
USWA
right
Tag
with wrestling. I don't know that
I
that's going
wish,
to be the
because
case, not with the
we needed Brian
personalities
as a single,
involved.
Fans
as a
on the front row
single
chanting super
competitor
kick, super
and
kick. They want to see
for
Brian
unified
unleash
title
one.
matches and the USWA Heavyweight Championship.
I
But
wanna
man,
see
instead
his
of
partner
going
get
with
in
Bart
there and
Sawyer
unleash
and the
one.
Rock
That's
of
what
the
he
thing, man, he and Brian,
looks like.
I think
That's
if
what
I would have
Lawler has
put
just
him and
said.
Brian
Said, hey, why don't
together,
you go to the corner?
switch
Let's see what your partner
PG-13
can do,
heel,
huh?
they would have
I said,
had
okay.
a hell of a
Here
program
comes Flex
and drew
Kavana.
some
First
money.
look at
Hello,
him
David
on
Lindbergh.
USWA Wrestling on TV.
He's a big dude. You can. It's no great observation. It's pretty easy to see when you stack him upside the King in there. But as Lawler said, there's no substitute for that experience and mental abilities. And Lawler puts a shoulder and right away.
Man,
I mean,
looks
that's
like
a
$1
jumping
million.
jack. Knocked him down. He popped back up before he could turn around.
Drops down, leapfrog, come back again,
Let's Lawler
reverse
go by a couple of
leapfrog,
times,
sets himself for a monkey flip.
Takes
Great
him down
little
and
spot up
immediately
again,
back on his feet.
and an arm drag down, and Lawler
To
goes
catch Lawler
down
on the
again.
rebound.
Hello again, Raleigh Welber Jr. Hope you're doing well.
Oh, yeah. Looking good.
Dundee. He's livid. Yeah, screaming he pulled his hair. He did not. Lawler immediately got over to the side of the
says, "I
ring
still
and
say
wrapped
Lawler
both
never
feet around the
the
bottom
best
rope. And now
team
Lawler and Dundee are outside the
from
ring.
Memphis.
And maybe
Bar
they didn't
none.
exactly want to see what Flex
Banana
Kavana can do,
and
because
press.
Mr. Kavana sure looked good first time around here.
They've seen it up already. They know that this guy can
Yeah.
go. This is not the
Into
first
his
time he's
run
had a pair of
in
tights on.
wasn't here
There's a tag
long
on the
for May the
superstar. In he
24th to
comes.
August the
He'll be
24th.
tangling for the first time with
That's Flex Kavana. Then, by the time we got to
Lawler and
WWF,
Dundee not
Vince already
impressed
knew
early
that
on.
the Flex
But now that
Kavana
they've seen
name
not
was
only
not going
Brian,
to work,
but
so he
Kavana,
went
you gotta
with
wonder,
Rocky
with their
Maivia,
confidence
first
be
name from
shaken,
his dad,
do
Rocky
they now
Johnson, second
feel,
name
hey, these
Maivia
belts are in
from his
jeopardy?
granddad, High Prince.
Well, I don't know, Dave.
Peter
We both
Maivia.
know Lawler and Dundee, and it takes a lot to shake the confidence of these two veterans. Dundee right straight at him, and
Jimmy
immediately
remembers
he's pushed
this
off and
from
down on the
May
floor again. Almost rolls out to the
of the
concrete
year
floor. And Lawler comes in,
1996,
puts
as
the
we
finger
are
out, and I don't know
seeing
exactly
a
what he said.
star
He pulled his
born
hair.
in
That's what
Memphis,
Lawler was
Tennessee.
saying.
Well, that's what
Not
Lawler
the
and
very
Dundee have
first
both been
time
doing. They've been
we've had a
complaining
star
about
born
pulling tights,
in
pulling
Memphis,
hair,
Tennessee.
anything they can do to
with the
kind of
Rock.
get the referee
So
watching
just
their
figure out
opponent
his
more
age. He
closely.
was born in 1972. This
Tie
was
up.
in
Dundee shovels him into the rope. There's the
96.
leapfrog. Comes around on the drop
So
kick.
what's that? 24 years
As
old, Bat?
Dundee down on the deck. Not the greatest drop kick I ever saw.
You're the
but by
financial
golly, it
guy.
Put Dundee on the deck.
I think that shows some of the power of
You
Flex
don't
Kavana. He
have
did
to be
not
a
get a good
financial
drop
guy to
kick, but
count.
Dundee was fairly close to him, and it knocked Dundee back,
Well, he
especially considering
graduated.
what Dundee
He
had been
finished
through up
his
until the kick failed.
And
he
Lawler
finished
takes it
his
back over
football eligibility
again. Brian Christopher.
in
Not
94.
94, and this was
an
90.
unusual role
Six.
for him. He's over
Okay,
there
so he spent a
cheerleading,
year in
and boy,
Canada.
his
So
eyes
maybe
are
a season in
glistening,
Canada.
Dave. Brian
Actually, I
loves
think he
this
spent more than
competition,
that.
and he's got
I'll look it up.
him a partner he can swing with.
Yeah, watch out for that left
I agree, Raleigh. Lawler and Dundee were meant for
fist.
each other. What stories have told, true
We saw
art. They are fantastic.
Lawler do
Brooks
the
says I
same
love
thing
the
last week against his opponent as
Stone
he and
Cold
Dundee won these
Steve
belts.
Austin and the Rock feud. And I think
Kavana
that's the only
coming
program
straight
that's
after him. He
ever
took that
had
shot
3
from Lawler with that
WrestleMania main events.
left
That's
hand,
a
and it headed
very
right after him, and Lawler
impressive
thought
feat as we are
it'd be a good
watching
time
this
to
May
get the referee involved
1996
and keep those
debut
fists from
of the
flying.
Rock
Using
in
the referee
professional
as a
wrestling
shield.
on
Yeah, it was effective.
USWA
And that
Championship
speaks well for
Wrestling
Mr.
with
Kavana. He backed up
Lance
rather
Russell
than
and
taking a
Dave
swing,
Brown,
taking
ring
a chance on
announcer
hitting
Flex Kavana, the promoter and the booker, the owner,
referee.
founder, and president
Lawler
in
over
the
to have a
future of
word
Power
with,
Pro
Bill
Wrestling.
Dundee.
But the booker at this time is yours truly,
You
ORH.
still, regardless of how impressive Christopher and Kavana have looked,
This is a great
still
competitive
gotta say,
match.
from the
Getting a lot
outside,
of
Dundee rips with a
time.
right
Lawler
hand, and
and
another
Dundee
one.
got
As while Lawler
the
shovels
baby
him
faces
in,
are over from the
Jerry
beginning,
goes
and
over
now
at
we
Brian
go with
Christopher
some
and
heat
Dundee working
on Flex
Flex
Kavana, The Rock.
with the referee's back turn. Lawler holding.
As
Dundee
Al
pitching.
says, Roman and Brock also had 3 main events. They didn't draw the money that The Rock and Austin did.
throws
I can
Dundee about
guarantee
3
you
feet in
that.
the air to break out of it at a 2 count. Dundee immediately over to the corner. The tag on Lawler. They double him up.
The main reason that he never was brought into the
Kavana into the
WWF
ropes.
is that The Undertaker
The
didn't
upper
like him.
Arms
And
from
The Rock
both of them.
didn't get him
Dundee
there.
celebrating. He thinks maybe it's over. Lawler picking up Kavana. The match continues. U.S.
Hell of an interesting match with
WA
a
tag
great
titles
story
on the
here.
line here. The
Heat
champions,
on
Lawler,
Flex
Dundee.
Kavana.
And
The
the right
Rock.
fist again. That
Okay,
puts
when
Kavana
you're
on the
watching
mat.
this for the first time,
Took a
seen this
line.
before.
Kavana
This is
making
The
a
Rock in his
deep
rookie
impression, but
year
don't forget
in
this
pro
guy.
wrestling. Now
Here
attack. Here
comes
comes
Too
Brian
Sexy.
Christopher. Now we're
Pounded
going to
away.
break into a
Lawler taking
four-way.
a shot first from
as
Christopher, then from Kavana.
The Rock a little
coconut
lost
crush
right there as Lawler went
Christopher
to him.
hammered their
He
heads
shouldn't
together, and
have
now
never got
Dundee
out of the
caught by
ring as
Kavana,
now we go
Lawler by
as we
Christopher
go into the
the
finish
ropes they
type,
go.
a double teaming move, the
Trying to get
abdominal
around behind.
stretch,
A double abdominal stretch on Dundee and Lawler.
That's a
And
finish
the
you
referee
don't see
clobbered by
very
Dundee. Bill
often.
rushed down on the deck while Christopher and Kavana
You know, when I
holding on to
was
the
a
abdominal
kid, you
stretches.
saw that
Dundee
as a submission hole in Birmingham a lot.
reached
Oh,
out, Dave, and just
absolutely, yeah.
hammered him
You're
with that
exactly
left
right. Good point. The referee was
That's
bumped.
That's one
The
of those
referee
things we were
goes
talking
down.
about. Dundee did that on purpose. That's going to get him disqualified. These guys
You're
are in
right.
danger of losing the match right here. He nails the referee. That's a DQ. So Lawler and Dundee are going to keep the belts on the disqualification.
Yes, there was enough.
No signal from the referee, but mark my word, that's
I'm
what
not
it's
going
got
to get
to
into
be.
personal
I
stories,
mean, Dundee just
but I can
point
say
blank
it was over
nailed
a
him with
girl.
a fist.
Mark Calloway's
Christopher, a
first
little
wife, as a matter
premature.
of
He
fact.
grabs the belts, and he's indicating they
Wasn't
are the
married
new
at the time.
champ.
That's where he met her, in Louisville.
That would be
For sure.
a difficult thing to believe because
As we come out of the video right
Of
now
course,
and
it
we
could have
come full screen, now let's directly go full screen with Pat. With his thought for that match is that I can search and get our second video up there. Your thoughts, Pat?
Well, I mean, he obviously has been around wrestling and he obviously understands how to put a match together. It's interesting. A guy that young that could go that long, was that a 10-minute match?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean that's not usual. I mean, I think when you told me you were going to play this, and I do remember seeing it, but my memory of it was more or less a squash match. But I mean, that would have been a main event at the Coliseum. I mean, that was fine. And he obviously had extreme athletic wrestling, and I don't want to say athletic. Okay, gymnasts have athletic skills, but he obviously had wrestling athletic skills.
Absolutely, 100%. David Lingo asking if the girl in question was Samantha Payne. No, not at all. That was way before Samantha Payne became, who later became Samantha Dundee, who were seen on the Power Pro Wrestling Watch Party catches on Monday nights at 7 o'clock. Everybody, and now again, as that video went on, then we had little issues, but I stayed with it because it seemed like we didn't have too long of delays as we will watch. From August the 24th, 1996, it was the last television match for the Flex Kavana in Memphis at the TV5 studios for the USWA. And we're going to watch that right now. Cross your fingers, everybody. Cross your fingers.
Downtown Bruno in the ring right now. We got to get this one underway.
Opportunity, Dave. He's going to have the opportunity to get on a bus and get out of town after this match.
He's got the opportunity. His opportunity has become.
They'd already set up the talk angle
His opportunity is right here.
to make this a loser leave town match for the championship. The Unified World Championship on the line. Downtown, Bruno is the referee, and here we go.
Opportunities that Tom Cure received in his wrestling career to have a chance to be the unified world heavyweight champion.
We're going to stick with it.
It's Lord Kavana, unified world title is on the line versus Flex Kavana leaving the USWA.
Yes, indeed. Time is winding down. This expiration of time match here.
I am sure this is the Ross or Dwayne Johnson's very first opportunity at a world title. Scott Bowden. Your buddy Scott Bowden, Pat. He's interfering.
Well, there you go.
We've actually got about, well, it's less than a minute to go before we've got to take a break. I wish we had more time for this, but we've gotten into a time now.
Yeah, time is running a little funny here right now.
A rookie Flex Kavana, a rookie Dwayne Johnson, a full head of hair Flex Kavana.
We've had Flex Kavana has left the area. We're going to have to take a break here. Oh, here comes Bart Sawyer out, his former partner. We have to take a break. We're going to have to ring the bell here. Talk about your excitement. We had to cut away for the commercials. They just kept going. The bell has not sounded to end the match. They are still underway. Unified world title at stake. Lawler put the belt at stake. If Flex Kavana loses, he's out of the USWA. And they have been battling. Scott Bowden. Yeah. What is he doing? doing? He's in the ring. Oh, Bart Sawyer pulls him back out of the ring.
Bart Sawyer was brought out here by Kavana as we went to our commercial break. And Sawyer's even things up. Meanwhile,
Kavana's got it down. We've got 15 seconds before we're going to have to leave the air. Flex Kavana just missed the chance to be the world champion.
Kavana had Lawler, and the king nailed Flex
Lawler
Kavana.
nailed him.
Oh, he set
He's
him
got a
up
power
in.
driver.
Pile drive Flex Kavana. He's got him covered. Bruno's in there.
1, 2.
Oh, no.
Kavana's gone. We got to go. We'll see you next week. Until then, for Corey Macklin, I'm Dave Brown. So long, everybody.
The announcers on this
I want to
program
bring
are
Adam
selected
on
and paid
now.
by parties other than
This show is going off the air, and Adam's watched a lot of Memphis Wrestling on TV. Adam, come on in here with us and explain how unusual that was to be that short on time at the end of the program.
Yeah, definitely unusual to be that light on time. Had to get the commercial break in there and everything like that. But, you know, how many times on Memphis Wrestling, and again, I know I say it like every time I'm on camera, but live television, golly, I love it. And here's another reason why. I mean, down to the wire, you've got that match going on, and it's executed beautifully. I mean, we barely have time for the Dick Hawley voiceover at the end of the show to get us out of there. We find out, oh my gosh, he didn't win. He's out of here. He loses the loser leave town, and boom, we're off the air. Absolutely perfect.
We're still waiting for Michael St. John, and whenever he does arrive, if you can monitor that for us and get him on here. So, thoughts about that match, the loser leaves town. Obviously, it was rushed, but it was a good, exciting match, and I remember about having a nervous breakdown. I thought they weren't going to do it. I thought they weren't going to get it in, and it was certainly a loser leaves town. And we didn't show the video of the setup of the match, and I wish that would have been on there. But your thoughts on that match?
I thought it was great, and I agree with Adam. It was interesting that Dave talked about they cut to a commercial, and he said they just kept on wrestling. I didn't know if the protocol was to stop wrestling during the commercial or not, but
Oh no,
you
you had
know,
no. You had what Dave thought was when he went to the break. That was the end of the match. It continued to the
oh,
next segment.
okay, I
So,
got it. I got it.
so they wouldn't have stopped with the audience full of people. They wouldn't have just stopped the wrestling.
You
But that
know,
was exciting, right?
Yeah,
And
Dave
Adam
Dave had mentioned that he wasn't sure if he was going to have the bell to stop the match during the break or not. So when they came back, that's why Dave mentioned that they did indeed keep wrestling the commercial break.
got it. You know, if you look at that, and Adam, I'm gonna piggyback on what you said. You know, you had five guys that choreographed that down to the 30-second mark. You had Lawler, you had The Rock, you had Scott, you had Sawyer, and you had Bruno, and they played that match like a Broadway musical, and it worked out just perfectly. It was great. And
Panetta
while I'm
said
on, David, I want you to know we're thinking about your family and your mom, and we're gonna hope for more improvement. And you're in our prayers, my friend.
Panetta with a great comment said that Lawler was Flex's last match USWA and his very first match in the WWF at SummerSlam. So that's just a great fact that Panetta shared with us. Tony Voss is my man Sky Allen, who is not one of my favorite people in the world at all. Sorry for the fact that he died, but certainly he would get on your nerves in a heartbeat for sure. And David, I echo the fact that I hope your mom is certainly better as well. For Michael St. John, Chris Ellis is not with us this week. He had a meeting at 5:30 or a dinner, and so he's doing work stuff. I just wanted to comment that this past weekend, Arkansas University, the Red Wolves lost to the Memphis and Arkansas, the University of Arkansas, the number 10 team in the country, had a little tough one with Missouri State, and they almost lost that sucker. And Pat, you're going to have to smart me up. How was Alabama off, or did they destroy somebody this weekend?
Yeah, they beat Louisiana Monroe 63-7.
Amazing. Hey, I've seen you. We'll get to wrestling in just a second, but I've been looking at your Twitter feed as I always do, and you've been predict that a former, not for long, but a former football coach at Arkansas State University, the current football coach at Auburn, you predicted that he wasn't going to last a day, but I think he lasted a day, correct?
You know, he did, and I mean that's like going to work for some outlaw mud show deal. Man, Auburn doesn't know what they're doing down there. They should leave that guy alone and let him coach. They've got too many people involved in that program. I'll tell you what. I'll tell you about the Auburn football program I'll characterize it that everybody on the show can hear. They got about 15 bookers down there.
15 bookers, and that leads to a mess, no doubt about it. We're going to talk some wrestling, and I'm just going to tell you what I watched of wrestling, some of the good, and talk a little bit about the bad. As Al Tuttle says, Georgia Tech's coach probably won't last much longer, and I don't know Georgia Tech coach is, and I don't know what the Georgia Tech record is this year. What's going on, Pat, in Georgia Tech? What's wrong there?
Well, it's hard for Tech. Tech's a little bit like Auburn. It's hard for Tech to compete when Georgia's doing well, and it's hard for Auburn to compete when Alabama, Georgia, and Florida are doing well. And David, your Kentucky Wildcats are as good as anybody.
They're the number 8 ranked team in the country, right, Pat?
That's right, and they beat Florida soundly the other day. So I like watching those guys play. I like watching Arkansas play, and I like watching Kentucky play.
The name of this show is Talking Memphis Wrestling. Well, we're going to talk modern wrestling just a little bit, and I can promise you we are going to talk a lot of Memphis wrestling today. We're waiting for Michael St. John, the best of TV wrestling this past week, and I jotted down a few things. I thought the John Moxley promo was fantastic. I really liked the John Moxley, Sammy Guevara, as they were doing a tournament for who's going to be the world champion. Moxley and Sammy was just great. I thought Jay Lethal, who is certainly underrated, and Jungle Boy, they had a hell of a match. I mean, just absolutely fantastic, no doubt about it. And the TV main event of Dynamite that did, I think, almost $1.2 million was Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho. That was the main event that Danielson won by making Jericho tap out. It was just fantastic. A lot of good wrestling there. Also, great promos in with the WWE and a lot of excitement in the WWE. Kevin Owens and Austin Theory absolutely had Kevin Owens kicked ass, man, with the promo segment there with a lot of passion and excitement. Also, the stars certainly of SmackDown, the Bloodline, and we'll talk about them when we talk about factions, and also Roman Reigns. There's no doubt, even though he wasn't on the show, they did a deal, and we'll talk about celebrities a little bit in wrestling, and some traditionalists not happy with the fact that Logan Paul, who has 30 million, 30 million social media followers. That's why he's on there. But he's an athlete. The two matches he's had have been very good. And I like the Logan Paul situation. So I'm talking about the best. What I saw, Pat, your comments on what we discussed. Turn your mic on, Pat.
Is it on now?
Yes.
Okay. I got it mixed up. I didn't see a lot this week, so I didn't see a lot. I didn't see AEW or SmackDown. I started listening to Cornette last night to get updated, and then I fell asleep.
Well, his reports are 100% biased. You can't make a
Well, I know
decision
that,
based
but at
on.
least you know who's wrestling who. I mean, we're all biased. I wish I had seen, and I want to go back and try to find Jungle Boy and Jay Lethal because I really like Jungle Boy.
Very good. And we're welcoming to the program. And when we look, it's 10 minutes to 8 Central Standard Time. And we welcome back for the first time in a couple of weeks. Pat, thank you very much for helping me for the last 50 years. Stick around, and we have somebody new to talk about.
Okay, I can't hear anybody here. Hey, guys, I can't hear anybody here. Let me see what's wrong with my system here.
We can hear you.
Everything turned up the way that it's supposed to be. Yeah, it looks that way, but for some reason I can't hear anybody.
Can you hear us now?
Have I got something down here? No, nope. Can you guys hear me? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. Thank
No,
you.
no,
I can't
no,
hear
no,
you guys,
no,
so I'm
no.
gonna have to figure this out.
No, 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 no.
That.
No, we can hear you. You can't hear us. We can hear you. Alto says the Saudi prince wanted Logan Paul, so they're going to give him what he wants with all the money he's given.
Okay, for whatever reason, I am not hearing anybody. How about now?
We can hear you.
I got you.
All right. What did you do, Michael?
What did I do? Well, where do you want me to start?
What did you do to get us going?
Turn the button on.
Radio legend.
Well, thank you, Pat. It's great to be back. Let me tell you, football season to me. I'm just going to give you a quick thumbnail of what I did today. I've been up since 5:30. I went to Decatur, Alabama, interviewed the Austin coach. Went to Brewer High School in the Coteco Valley, interviewed the Brewer coach. Went across to 431 to Sardis City, also known as Sardis, Alabama, and interviewed the head coach of the Sardis Lions. Went to Fort Payne and interviewed Coach Chris Elbert of the Fort Payne Wildcats, who ARAB plays this week. And ARAB, by the way, is undefeated for the first time since 1973 this season. And then from there, I went to Plainview High School to talk to the dad of the former head football coach at the University of Tennessee. So after that, I grabbed a bite at a restaurant in Pat, you may know about this place. It's called Big Mike's Steakhouse in Moundville, Thomasville, Orange Beach, Auburn. We got one in Gunnersville now. My wife was still chowing down on the steak when I left, but I had the oysters. It was a great place to eat in a new place called City Harbor. Randy, we got to get you down here so I can take you around to City Harbor and Gunnersville Lake and all this wonderful area. I need to get you down here for a time or two. I know Pat knows the area pretty well, but I need to get you down here.
That would be fantastic. Frank Seaton is saying hello to Michael. Al Tuttle saying hello. Panetta saying hello. Everybody's thrilled to death and tickled to death that you're with us. Besides football, what is going on in your life, Michael? Everybody healthy? What's Joshua doing?
Joshua's doing great. He had we had an evaluation yesterday. We're going to give him some occupational therapy, but his speech therapy is coming right along. And very happy with his progress. We'll continue at the Bill Wilkerson Center at Vanderbilt. I'll go back up there Thursday for that. That's going well. Family's good. Melanie's good. Keep happy wife, happy life. But in the past 2 weeks, we have lost 2 AM transmitters. One to lightning, one to gosh only knows what hit it. And so unfortunately, Melanie's had to write a couple of checks that she hasn't been happy about writing. But to maintain your FM translators, you have to keep the AM on the air, even though you may not have any listeners on the AM. and we live by the live by the line of the law of the FCC. So, it's just something that happens. But our wallets are a lot thinner today than they were the last time we met.
Those capital checks are big checks, aren't they?
One to the point of about 25, and the other one we think is going to be in the neighborhood of 15, but it could be more. But yeah, it's a big chunk.
That is not good. The best of wrestling last week. Did you watch any wrestling? I gave my little list of the best of wrestling, and then as soon as you tell us what you thought the highlights was of modern wrestling this week on television, then I will tell you what I didn't like about wrestling this week. Go ahead.
Well, the Friday night shows were very interesting. I get to watch them after the football game, so I get to watch. I have the satellite, so I get to watch the West Coast feed of Fox, and the AEW show they actually rerun at about, I want to say 11:30 or 12 o'clock. So I caught about an hour of that. I thought that I like the return of MJF. I think that's what AEW right now. AEW just in trying to keep up with it and doing everything I do. And I do a lot of my prep work on Wednesday nights, so I have 2 TVs rolling. I just get the feeling that AEW is a bit discombobulated right now. And I don't know direction-wise which direction they're going. But I will say this. I've been very happy about watching Monday Night Raw in knowing and seeing that we're seeing more wrestling. They're saying the word wrestling. We're seeing wrestlers wrestle. And we haven't seen that in a long time. So there was a really good match last night. I thought the opening match with Seth freaking Rollins and the Almighty, even though Bobby Lashley seems pretty thick and stiff in the ring, I thought that as that wrestling match went on, it was a wrestling match, and I thought it was really good. And I've been really surprised, and I've never thought a lot of the guy until the past few weeks, and I think he's doing a good job, is Kevin Owens. I've always sort of tossed Kevin Owens in the barrel of just a bunch of wrestlers kind of thing, but over the past couple of weeks, I either Triple H or he or somebody's working with him, or he's coming up with what he's doing match wise, and I think I think he's a go for those guys right now. And I know a lot of people. I've seen a lot of Twitter comments on Johnny Gargano and Johnny Wrestling. I like the gimmick. I like the Johnny Wrestling thing. And I think he's just enough snidely whiplashy that, they've got him as a baby face right now because all the people are excited about him. I think he and Kevin Owens could be one hell of a heel team if they'll turn him.
One of the things is Wednesday's night Grand Slam. They got Bryan Danielson and they've got Jon Moxley, the members of the Fight Club, their partners and the friends, and now they're battling for the world title. And we'll kind of follow up on how it looks like AEW. The reason it looks like they're kind of off the ball a little bit is because of so many changes. They've had one hit after another. I don't care if it's Memphis Wrestling, Georgia Wrestling, WWF Wrestling, Mid-Atlantic. When you have 5, 6, 7 people are hurt and you have to change people up. And obviously, I thought it was interesting. They had the big turmoil there in AEW, and just outsider looking in, to me, everything I've ever heard my whole life was CM Punk was a cancer in the dressing room. Don't know the Young Bucks, don't know Punk, don't know anybody, don't know what's really going on. But certainly, I think to do the numbers they've done the last 2 weeks, do the shows, I think in the last 2 weeks, I think AEW, I think they did a fantastic job. I think they pulled together. I think the last 2 weeks are some of the stronger shows, and I think who knows what the decision, because it's into legal's hand and lawsuits and all kinds of stuff. So who knows? And Punk's hurt, but I think the last 2 weeks AEW's been a lot better. So I haven't missed Punk, and I haven't missed the Bucks, and I haven't missed Kenny Omega. I haven't missed any of them. So they're throwing the ball again at Chris Jericho, who Chris Ellis last week thinks he should retire. I think he's the most valuable person in AEW since day one and still is today. There's no doubt. I can't tell you how much longer he has left. Maybe a year, maybe two. Chris had an idea because I think a major thing they need to do is find a booker. It's too much on Tony, too much going on. They need a booker. And Chris suggested, and I agree, I think it should be Chris Jericho. And if that happens, he don't need to be wrestling and he don't need to be on TV. But a wrestling guy that has the credibility and knows that talent needs to book that
I'm
thing.
not so sure I might not reach out and go for a Dutch Mantel. And I know Dutch is a little lean in the tooth right now, but Dutch to me always had good creative ideas. He and Dundee always, to me, and Randy, you may disagree with this. And,
I do. Totally.
But I thought he and Dundee were similar in their styles. Different ideas, but similar in style.
2022, I don't think I'd be good. I don't think Dutch would be good. I don't think Dundee would be good at all during that time period. I think the person more up to date on what current wrestling is, or let's say up to date, would be Dundee. I think you just don't watch it. I think Dutch does watch it at the time, and certainly everybody you mentioned. I think somebody that's right in the fire like Chris Jericho, and certainly he's booked himself, even had input since the WCW days. So that's what I would go. The one negative, before I give my negative, do you have any negative of anything you saw in the last week?
I think the WWE is leaning a little too heavily on the women's division to carry the torch right now. Certainly on Monday Night Raw, maybe on the Friday night show with the Usos and the big guy and the head of the table and all that good stuff. I think that's a strong card, and they're playing it, and that's good. But the Monday night show, and not that I'm anti-women, I love women wrestling, I love ladies wrestling. I'll be honest with you, I don't think there's a lady wrestler today that could step in the ring with any of the great wrestlers that came through the Memphis area, whether it was Betty Grable or whether it was
Joyce Grable.
Yes, Joyce Grable or oh gosh, I'm having some senior moments here. Forgive me. The lady that pulled the gun on Nick Goulas, Cora Combs. I think Cora Combs could beat everybody in either division, in either wrestling company in about 2.5 minutes. I just, and I remember calling a match with her and Debbie as a tag team. Well, actually, they were wrestling against each other. The Lady Scorpion against Debbie Combs, and come to find out it was, of course, mother versus daughter. And Debbie Combs is chip off the old block. And Candy Devine, I think, took a lot of that knowledge that she learned from the Combs. And to me, those are lady wrestlers that were attractive wrestlers, but could also wrestle. And I think we've got a lot of lady wrestlers, quote unquote, right now that are more on the attractive side than on the wrestling side. And quite frankly, I think some of the old school folks who God rest them all, if they were around today, they would they'd make mincemeat out of these lady wrestlers. So fact, you made a point, Randy, that if Dundee or Dutch or yourself weren't able to book, there's only one other person available to book AEW, and that's Pat Trammell.
Yeah, you would not want to see that.
No, I would not at all. Zero. Al Tuttle throws out Bully Ray from what I think he does great on Busted Open. I think he does fantastic, Al. But for everything I've heard from people that work with him, hard to get along with, and that might not be a bad thing. It's real easy to go on a radio show and tell what you don't like. I'd like to, or give an idea after the fact, but I just don't know how he would be. He's never been a booker anywhere. Do I think he would be better than Tony Khan? Right now, Tony Khan needs a rest. I'm absolutely 100% for that. I still go with Chris Jericho.
Could Jim Ross do it, Randy? Do you think Jim Ross could do it?
I think, and we talked about it last week. No, I do not think he could do that. I think he's for the WWF. He booked house shows. That was part of his job. But as far as creative and that sort of thing, he never did. Doesn't have experience there. So no, I don't think JR would be good with that. However, they got issues, big issues in the dressing room, and I think if he can physically do it, and why they don't have him on Dynamite lately is driving me absolutely crazy. And they have that damn mask guy there, it drives me crazy. I think JR needs to be the executive vice president of talent relations and go in there and get that place in control, type of thing. I think, I heard a thought that somebody in the know had told somebody that I know real well that said the first target that CM Punk had to get out of the company, and this is hearsay, but it's hearsay from somebody that talked to somebody that's there. The first target to get out of there, out of AEW, and to get into Tony Khan's hair that Punk had, I'm hearing it was Cody Rhodes. What happened? Cody Rhodes went back to the WWF, has a lot less pressure, no executive duties, and Cody Rhodes is making a lot more money. No doubt. Hello, Richard. Hood.
One thought on that, Randy, is I see, and a lot of the pundits on social media are saying that WrestleMania's main event is going to be Roman Reigns and The Rock. I think it's going to be Roman Reigns and Cody Rhodes. I think Cody Rhodes is about a month away from a comeback. And to me, that would draw, you talk about something that's going to draw money, both in person and on pay-per-view. I mean, I would pay to see that because you've got two classic wrestlers that also incorporate some of the nouveau style that we have seen of late come into the wrestling world. And I think that might be a hell of a main event. One other thing, sort of off subject, but before it leaves my mind, I wanted to mention it. I was talking to somebody the other day, and they brought up a fact that Conrad Thompson has been doing some of these StarCast events that are tied in with whatever major pay-per-view is going on with either AEW and or WWE. He had just a really successful one. I had a huge one in Nashville, but I had a really successful one a few weeks ago in Chicago. But I'm hearing rumblings that Jeff Jarrett and Conrad may start booking a new wrestling show and or company, maybe to run a show a month kind of thing. But I'm wondering, is he looking at buying TNA? Is he looking at buying NWA? Is he looking at creating another company? But Conrad is the best. In fact, Jerry Jarrett said that Conrad Thompson was the best wrestling promoter on the face of the earth right now from what he's doing with that. And I don't disagree with him. And then when you got somebody as knowledgeable and as smart and as connected as Jeff, and Jeff is just a new person all the way around, that could be AEW Dynamite right there. If I don't know if they would get involved with either of the. I know Jeff is working for WWE right now on live events, but
no,
he's not anymore.
No, he was replaced when Hunter got control. Jeff's gone. I don't know if it's Jeff decision or a Hunter decision, but Hunter went with Road Dogg Jesse James as the executive vice president of live events.
Well, and then there may be some fire to the smoke that I'm hearing, and we're getting it around Huntsville in the business area of Huntsville, the business world of Huntsville, that Conrad and Jeff may have something on the griddle.
That wouldn't surprise me a bit. Let me throw in real quick on something I didn't like, and it's funny. I have something I didn't like on both companies, and both were about factions, and we will talk about the Great Wrestling faction in a little bit. But I'm telling you right now, in the WWE, the damage control of Bailey, Dakota, and Io Sky, I think they're horrible. I think they're absolutely horrible, and I'll flick them off. In the AEW, I think the firm, you got Magic with MJF coming back, and they put him with Stokely Hathaway. Who the hell is he? Ethan Page, or W. Morrissey, which used to be Big Cass. I get that. Lee Moore, Oddie, and then the Gun Club is part of that group. So, Pat, we'll talk to you real quick because we hadn't heard from you much. What do you think about those factions? Because I think that's two bad ones.
He's had to jump off for a minute, Rand. There he
Yeah,
is.
I need to jump off for a minute. I'll be back.
All right.
Randy, if I may comment on that, I agree with you on. I've never understood the allure of Bailey to begin with. I always thought she was she reminded me of an old school out of shape male wrestler when she began, and I'm not a Bailey. I have never bought into that gumbo at all. The two women, the two girls, the Oriental girls that are with her now, they're the they may wrestle, they may be great Oriental style wrestlers, but when it comes to catch as catch can, they're the drizzling shits.
Let me jump in real quick, Michael, and a full screen with me and do a family thing right now because it just happened to be that I am wearing my Great Dane shirt and the mother of Hank and Hercules and my future niece-in-law, Ryan, is watching. And see, even though I'm not in the same location, even though I'm all the way across town, I sport my Hank and I support my Hercules and my Theos and my Millie or Willie or the cats and the dogs and all that. Miss you, Ryan, Miss Corbin, Miss Hank, Miss Hercules, miss them all. So now we'll get back to talking Memphis Wrestling. And I, again, 100% disagree with Michael. I did not like I have not liked the way they booked Bailey since she's come back this time. However, she was absolutely at the babyface type of thing, and the kids liked her when she debuted. I thought she was great. I thought she was fantastic. I personally think the women of today, the top women today, blow away women in the past. I blow them away, absolutely blow them away, because they're treated as main event people and not treated as an attraction. Bailey, I like. I see money, money, money. Her merchandising is great. Money, money, money. However, I think one of the errors, few bad calls that Triple H is making, that group is bad. But I think we're talking about factions. I think the group that's associated with the firm and those names I mentioned, Stokely Hathaway, who the hell is that? Ethan Page, I know. Big Cass, William Morrissey is good. Lee Moriarty, who the hell is that? And the Gun Club, I know that. But why would you put those guys with what I think is the best heel in the business? Why would you do that, Michael?
I agree with you. I'm not fond of the way that's all being put together. On the other hand, I like the Blackpool whatever
Combat
Club.
Yes,
Club.
absolutely.
I like that. I think Regal's the genius. You talk about somebody who they want to put in charge of booking. Why not Steven Regal? I mean, Steven Regal is excellent, and I've always liked his work, and not only his work in the ring but out of the ring. And I, if they want somebody that can book their butt off, then Steven Regal's right there under their thumb.
Has he ever booked anywhere?
That I can't tell you. I think he did. I think he's got some prowess from England or across the pond. But
I think he would be a great idea guy and a great finish guy for sure, 100%. I just don't know about the booking part. Let's just talk about factions real quick.
Sure.
And Adam, if you would just follow me quickly at whatever I loaded on here. We will start with what some think is the greatest faction of all time, and we'll have the discussion as we get through it. The Four Horsemen, and my favorite, of course, would be the original one of Arn and Ole and Arn and Ole and
Tully.
Ric Flair and Tully. I think that was just fantastic. But there's been a lot of them that was very good. Also, another great, 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 great faction was the NWO, and they sold more T-shirts than any faction in the history of the world. And there's Hulk Hogan, and there's X-Pac, and there's Kevin Nash and Scott Hall. Certainly, the NWO. The Generation X was the WWF version. Then, of course, you had Evolution. You had the Hart Foundation. You had the New Day. You had the Nation of Domination. You had the Freebirds, the Heenan family, the Bullet Club, the Inner Circle, the Jericho Appreciation Society, the Main Event Mafia, Aces and Eights from TNA, the Millionaires Club, and of course in Memphis you had the First Family, King's Army, the Cornette Dynasty, and also the Randy Hales Syndicate. So
what about
Michael,
the Shield? What about the Shield?
The Shield, absolutely. That's one of my favorites.
One of my favorites. And
Yeah.
why the WW? And I heard that, and again, you hear what you hear. I heard the reason of those three guys, and that that Vince was not at the time wanting to break them up, but apparently Moxley had a drug problem, and in the matches he was getting drugged from one end of the ring to the other. So maybe that was the drug problem. But I heard there were problems externally that affected that. I thought the Shield was incredible, and if they ever decide to bring it back, I think it'd be incredible again.
Jeremy says the Stud Stable in Memphis, and of course, Al Tuttle says the Wyatt family. That I wasn't into that goofy stuff. I personally, I was not into that as well. So comments on who's your number one? Would you say
Of all the factions, number one's got to be the Four Horsemen, because they're over. They got the whole thing. The NWO. I always heard you mentioned that CM Punk was a cancer in the locker room. I've always heard Kevin Nash was Mr. Negative and a cancer in the locker room. That Nash was always stirring up shit. And
Scott could as well. Scott could as well.
Scott Hall. Yep. And I worked, you and I worked with Scott in Memphis, and Scott was a little less gregarious, I guess is the word I'm looking for. And we lost him, unfortunately, in terrible circumstance. But I've always heard that Kevin Nash was a frustrated UT football player that got into wrestling and that was lazy and was a cancer in the locker room. And I've heard that from people within our own groups that you and I, Randy, have dealt with. But that would be a faction that I would put in the top 5 just because they were so popular. But I would think the Shield, my personal opinion, Four Horsemen, the Shield, 1, 2.
Now, if you're looking at modern wrestling right now, who would you go with? Me right now, it would be hard for me of the effect they have on the business. And there's a few good ones. You mentioned the one that Regal's leading, but I think this bloodline with Roman and all the people there, I would say that's number one, and I think they could end up number one of all time. I mean, it could happen. It's hard to beat the Four Horsemen, I agree, but bloodline, man, what's your thoughts on the bloodline?
I totally agree. And the great thing about the bloodline, it is the bloodline. I mean, they're family. They're, of course, Paul's not, but but Paul is. I think and having Heyman there just makes the mix better. I'm a big Heyman fan. Anything that Paul E. dangerously touches is he's gonna make it happen. He knows he's got the magic touch. Do you remember when he was in the first time he came to Memphis, he was young. I want to say he was 21, 22 years old. Came up to Jerry Jarrett's house up on the hill and on Bonita Parkway in Hendersonville. One Thursday afternoon, we're shooting promos. Randy West was shooting it. Paul shows up. He shows up late. He's disheveled, very much energetic, very much taking whatever Jerry was handing him to say and do, getting it over great. And at the end, everybody's starting to leave. In fact, the bushwhackers were there, and everybody's getting to leave. And the poor guy is like looking around, obviously looking for somebody to give him a ride, okay? Because he had no car. He was brand new to the business. He was in Memphis, in the territory. And I looked at him and I said, "Where do you need to go?" And he says, "Well, I'm staying at a hotel over here in Hendersonville, and it was the one down by the park." And yeah. And I said, "Here, I got you, no problem." So I took him down there, and he was just, and he talked the whole time. But I really liked him from that point on. He was just one of those guys that you just, no matter what his persona was, you just like him. And I think there's a few people in the radio business I consider radio geniuses. There's a few people in the wrestling world that I consider wrestling geniuses. In our day and time, I think we're witnessing one with Paul Heyman.
So who would you go with number one in modern wrestling? The Combat Club or the Bloodline?
Bloodline, without a doubt. Yeah. Last night on Raw, I don't know if you saw it, there was a tag team match between the Brawlers. I think I've got this right, and the guys that We Want Smoke. They say We Want Smoke. They're like, they come out in their persona or hood rats, and they're wearing a uniform. Last night they had a uniform that was mocking the San Francisco Giants, and they do a little rap thing, and actually can go. They can work. And last night they had about a 15-minute match on Raw, and the fans just started chanting. And it was wrestling. It wasn't the, lipsy doodle. We're all on the flying trapeze.
Street Profits.
The Street Profits.
Right.
Thank you, Al.
Thank you, Al.
We appreciate that. But I think, and I think people really got into the match and really appreciated seeing real, honest to God professional wrestling on the WWE show.
Now, as we talk about honest to goodness wrestling, let's get away from honest to goodness wrestling, because this is a controversial thing, and I obviously, like I do with everything, and it seems like the fans are really upset about something that's going on in the WWE. They had the big press conference. I want to know, Michael, what you think about celebrities in wrestling, if you would use some examples that you've seen them done right and examples where you've seen them done wrong. I will just say that I love Logan Paul. He has 30 million followers. He boxes some. He's obviously an athlete. He's had two matches, and he's going to be the main event at Saudi Arabia, the big show there, because that's what
maybe they'll keep him.
That's what the Prince wants. I love him. I absolutely think he's fantastic, and I think the idea is they're doing it they're always trying to expand to get new fans and that sort of thing. So your thought, and I thought about it the way the press conference, and I thought the angle they did on SmackDown where he and Heyman got toe-to-toe with verbally, and I thought he didn't surpass Paul. That's impossible. But he kept up with him, and he did very good. So your thoughts on Logan Paul specifically, but in general, use of celebrities as we go full screen with Michael to talk about that.
Well, first of all, the Logan Paul thing with Paul Heyman, I think, was very good because Logan Paul is a linguist. He's a talker, and he can go toe to toe, and that's what he does on his podcast. So I thought that was good. I like the fact the way they introduced it is it came via Logan Paul's podcast, where he can say, "Hey, I can I can beat Roman Reigns, and it started on his podcast kind of thing. You're right about the WWE, and I think they're very smart to do this. They're trying to incorporate as much of what I call, well, the word I'm looking for is media that is akin to the media we're in. And ancillary media is what I call it. So to me, I'm in the radio business. Ancillary media is TV, ancillary media is billboards, ancillary media is social media sites, podcasts, so forth and so on. Revolve around, if in my orb of radio, those are the ancillary medias. In professional wrestling, you've got professional wrestling, and you've got TV, you've got radio, you got podcasts, you got social media, you got Twitter, you got Facebook, et cetera, Snapchat, whatever the TikTok, BigBox, or whatever it is now. They're taking advantage of it. I think it's very smart. That's great marketing. Like you say, it expands the horizons, and I think that's a great idea. As for celebrities in wrestling, in my opinion, in my lifetime, the only time it has been done properly, well, and really in an era, think about this, before social media, before everybody had a camera on their phone, and when the fastest way of getting news around was calling somebody on the telephone, was Andy Kaufman and Jerry Lawler. I think when you put that up against anything celebrity wise is done in the professional wrestling business before or since, doesn't hold a candle.
And it seems like what I would do if I use celebrities, I wouldn't use too many. And of course, WrestleMania, and Al's going to have to help me here. What's the guy that was in the ring with Sami Zayn? They had the single match with all kind of completely comedy. I hate that. I absolutely hate that. So if anybody can tell me who Sami Zayn wrestled, I forgot the dude's name. He's a little bitty guy, and it was one of the most embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing things I've ever seen. So if somebody would answer that question, if you remember who Sammy did. I also, even though Logan Paul, I think he's good, and I think, again, his talking and his athleticism is good as the announcer from SmackDown that's taking a leave of absence. McAfee? Was that his name?
McAfee.
Yeah.
McAfee. He's good. By the way, he's on College Game Day on Saturdays. He's good. But I always thought he was a good announcer before he got into wrestling, and is a good announcer in wrestling. I think he'd be a good announcer for Tiddlywinks. I just think he's that good. Here's the deal, I think, on Logan Paul. Logan Paul is doing it as much for his ego and to spread his world, his orb, as the wrestling world is doing, or as Paul Levesque is doing. So, it's a win-win in that regard. My prediction is Logan Paul's going to get hurt because he's doing things that he hasn't been trained long-term to do. And he's taking a tremendous amount of risk. But I believe, I totally believe that's going to end up, that's not going to end up good. I just don't see it ending up good.
Al Tuttle says the name of the guy that I was looking for was Johnny Knoxville. I think that was,
that's the Jackass movies.
I thought that was horrible, absolutely horrible. Got Cornette ready to kill somebody, but that's just Cornette. I wasn't that crazy, but still, certainly. But I like Logan Paul, and I like, if you don't overdo it. And I'm thinking now WWE may be overdoing it a little bit. Do you think, Michael?
I think so, but I also think right now, and if I'm Triple H, I'm not so sure I'm not doing the same thing. I'm trying to put my stamp on it without totally changing the package. And something I learned from 7 radio stations I walked into, I never walked into a radio station that was number one established and I had to maintain, even one of the ones I bought. I always walked into a radio station that was on its ass or a brand new startup from ground zero. And the ones that were on there that were losing and were losing bad, 100% of the time, it was because of the talent involved. And about 95% of that time, that issue, the talent involved were just damn lazy. they didn't want to do the work. They didn't want to follow the format or do the process to get them to the point where they could compete and even at that point go forward and go after somebody and beat them and win the market or win the ratings war. So inevitably, when I went into a station that was on its tail, the first thing I did was I looked for points of light of people that I knew that I could probably turn around or would buy in or would work with us to get us to that next level. They were few and far between. 9 times out of 10, within a year, I'd sweep the place clean. New broom sweeps clean. AAA has a different objective, has a different job here. He's coming into a company that is ultra successful, especially in the business world. They may not be pulling as many people to the shows as they used to. Their talent may not be as strong and as plentiful as it used to, but he's got on one hand to maintain the level of the business acumen of the WWE as being a business model that works and pays off for the stockholders. But at the same time, he's got to change the culture inside the building or inside the locker room or inside the ring to where the talent level gets back closer to where The Rock and Steve Austin and John Cena and going even back to Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan, to that kind of era to where he is now. And if you look at those guys, they're up here helping create and maintain that business model as a successful business model, where the talent is today is down here. Roman Reigns is closer to that, but I don't think he's achieved that level yet.
Yeah, very interesting. We've got a lot of feedback on this, and Al certainly talking about Lawrence Taylor doing a real good job, and he did against Bam Bam Bigelow. He is also talking about when Rodman and Hogan wrestled Karl Malone and DDP. I thought that was good as well. So I appreciate, as I always do, the thoughts from everybody as we, just kind of jumping around right now, and we won't spend time on this, but we're going to talk about Pro Wrestling Illustrated, and certainly the magazines in its entirety, the whole concept of it is not what it used to be. I think we all know that, but I think we all can tell our experiences, our first time that we bought a wrestling magazine, and we are going to talk about the latest issue of Pro Wrestling Illustrated, the top 500. That was a lot of controversy, and I'm just going to read this year the top 10. Jonathan Grisham was 10. Big E was 9. El Hijo Del, whoever the heck that was 8. Brian Danielson was 7. Cody Rhodes 6. Bobby Ashley 5. Hangman Page 4. Punk 3. Okada in New Japan was number 2. And Roman Reigns number 1. I don't think there's any argument at all about number 1. I 100% agree. The notable omission that I see is the person that held the world title 3 times during the year time period. I don't understand why John Moxley is not in the top 10, and some of these guys I've never heard of. Your thoughts on this year, 2022 top 10, Michael? Then we'll go back to 2000, and we will read you the 2000 top 10 and just see how interesting that is, and see if anybody's still working. So your thoughts on this year's top 10?
If Adam can put that list back up for a second, the first notice that when I was looking at the first one that's missing to me is Seth freaking Rollins. I think, and I just noticed that Al Tuttle has made that same remark. I think he's tremendous. Where is MJF up there?
No.
I don't even see MJF. I don't know who Vikingo is. That may be a Japanese star that I'm just not aware of. Big E is hurt. Jonathan Gresham, who was he before he was Jonathan Gresham? He had another name.
Well, I don't know if he had another name, but he was a Ring of Honor champion.
Okay.
Obviously we know this is the work, and one of the things they say as their criteria is, and one of them is a win loss record and just different things. I certainly think if you're naming top wrestlers in a business, basically, and I think who did you just say? Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
Certainly, I think Seth Rollins. I would have had him hired because I like him as a talent better than I do John Moxley. But Moxley, a big deal in AEW, so I think he helped carry. He had more effect on the bottom line of business with AEW than Seth Rollins did on the bottom line of the WWE, but two different companies, two different philosophies. I just like Seth better, even though I do like John Moxley.
Question is, which one draws you more money? Moxley, I love Cornette's nickname for him. He calls him the plumber because he looks like a plumber. He looks like a homeless guy that got drunk one night, got into the wrestling business, became a plumber, and by the way, is wrestling on the side. I'm not a big wrestling John Moxley fan. I'm not a big garbage wrestling fan because I don't like the thumbtacks. I don't like the bat wrapped in barbed wire. I don't like the barbed wire encrusted ring. I don't like the exploding rings. I don't like rings that are being turned over by a forklift. I don't like any of that. Now, to me,
I like all of them.
Well, to me, the only
except thumbtacks. I don't like thumbtacks.
Well, to me, the only one that ever pulled it off in a way that there was a method to his madness was Terry Funk. You know, Terry Funk, he invented part of that, I'm sure, or masterminded it. And I don't think, and I think anybody else that goes after that same genre is emulating or copying Terry Funk. Some people are going to bring in ECW and some of the stuff that ECW did. The thing that always struck me about ECW, and Jerry Lawler would say this when he'd go up there, he said, Michael, they're in an old bingo hall and it's a dump, and all that shows up are guys. And all that shows up are guys that are looking for a fight or looking to harass somebody. It's not your common everyday, let's take the kids and let's all go watch, you know, the house show this week in Abilene for professional wrestling. And so I'm not a now it's matches with stipulations that include some of that stuff. I can buy some of that stuff. Yeah, absolutely. If you got a stipulation match where the ring is wrapped in barbed wire so the guys can't get out or get in, I get that. But just to throw it in there and razor wire or you know, whatever. I remember when a first blood match was a big thing. I remember when a Texas Tornado death match would be announced for a card on TV, people would pop and would stand in line to go see a Texas Tornado death match where falls count anywhere and they could go 100 falls. I mean, at one time, those were really big draws. Now it's an everyday occurrence on any of the shows.
Let's look at the year 2000 top 10 and see how many of these guys are still around. Number 10, and I'll butcher this name, was Sasaki. Number 9 was Chris Jericho. Liger was 8. Michael Awesome was 7. Justin Credible was 6. Number 5 was Double J. That's J-E-double-F, J-A-R-R-E-double-T. Kabashi was number 4. Chris Benoit was 3. The Rock was number 2. And Triple H number 1. Your thoughts on those, Michael?
That was 2000?
Yes, the year 2000.
Unfortunately, there are a couple of names in there that we've lost, unfortunately, that
Chris Benoit
aren't around anymore.
Mike Awesome's gone.
Yep.
Chris Benoit's gone.
Yep.
The only ones that I see still wrestling from time to time, Jericho and Jeff Jarrett.
Yep.
Correct?
Correct. You know, Jericho, has he seen his better days? Yeah. I think Jericho is a little bit, I get the feeling from his promos and his interviews, his shoot interviews or his off wrestling interviews, he's bitter. And I
don't get that at all.
I do. I get the fact that he's bitter about something. Maybe it's because his album stiffed or something in the music world, but I get a bitterness from him. and that's fine if you disagree. I understand, but I'm not necessarily saying it's a bitterness about wrestling, but I get the feeling he's got a bitter taste in his mouth about something. Jeff Jarrett to me is somebody that has been to the mountaintop, suffered the consequences of not taking care of business, if you would, and letting his hobbies get the best of him, and then hit rock bottom and decided he's going to return and come back. And Jeff got and I'm not saying that Jeff was into all the drugs and all that stuff, but I think what happened is that Jeff got in with some people that were, and I think when he lost his wife, that was a very traumatic. It's traumatic for anybody, but in his business,
Oh yeah,
I think that was very, very difficult from a personal standpoint for him to overcome. And I think he fell into doing some things to hopefully get some of that grief and hardship off of him that ended up hurting him in the long run. But I think the new Jeff Jarrett today is as good, if not better, than the Jeff Jarrett was when you and I were working with him in the 80s.
yeah, I think it's absolutely fantastic. We don't have a lot of time left on this show talking Memphis wrestling and this next subject. We may continue it to next week, but I won't just think of the best of. And I want to talk about two things, and Michael, and then I want my audience to be engaged and write comments on here. We do appreciate everybody taking the time out and giving their opinions on what's going on. The best of Memphis. We're going to talk about the best of Memphis in the 80s and the 90s. And I didn't rank them because I'm not going to do that at all. But thought about doing the 70s as well. Maybe we'll do that next week. Let me give you my list of the 80s and the 90s, and then Michael, your comments on that. And my fear is I've left somebody off. But in the 80s, Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee, Jimmy Hart, Austin Idol, Dutch Mantell, Eddie Gilbert, Handsome Jimmy Valiant, Joe LeDuc, Jim Cornette, Coco Ware, Jeff Jarrett, Lance Russell, Dave Brown, Jerry Jarrett, and Eddie Marlin. Now, you could always say, well, in the 80s, Nick Bockwinkel came in a lot, but didn't work the full territory a whole lot. He was a attraction. So my list of the 80s are certainly, and I think also for the 80s, you would have to throw in there, Michael, Stan Lane, Steve Kern, the fabulous ones. Then maybe even to throw in the Rock and Roll Express, what they did all over the place, not necessarily Memphis. So in the 80s, who do we add to this? Randy Savage, absolutely. Randy Savage. I had Savage and the Fabs on my list when I wrote it on paper, but when I typed it over, I missed that. Randy Savage, fabulous one. Certainly, Randy Savage would be a part of the 80s crew. So, Michael, your thoughts?
Phil Hickerson. Tojo Yamamoto.
Phil's great.
Tojo, even though Tojo was not wrestling full time and managing part of the time, I'd put Tojo in the 80s for sure, because Tojo could still, people would still, especially when he was a heel, Tojo could draw money just by showing up and being Tojo. I would basically put both of those. I would maybe put Robert Fuller and Jimmy Golden as a team from that era. That drew some great crowds and great money. But other than that, you're spot on. I don't disagree with anybody you got on that list.
Phil Hickerson, I absolutely agree with. Tommy Rich, as far as the main money drawing guy, was more in the 70s.
True.
He just really was.
He was already in Atlanta by then.
If I'd have to take anybody off, it would probably be the Rock and Roll, just because the Rock and Roll was second to the Fabulous Ones, and they didn't draw a lot of money in Memphis. They drew worldwide. They blow the Fabulous Ones out of the water, or anybody else. They're still teaming together today.
What about the team with Danny Davis and
the Nightmares?
Yeah, the Nightmares. Would you include the Nightmares?
I'm just thinking the best of. I'm thinking main event guys.
Gotcha. Rocky Johnson, maybe, or was he already out of Memphis by then?
No, he had a run, but he wouldn't have made a big guy. I would certainly have him in the 70s. We will do the 70s next week because I think it's absolutely fantastic. Frank Stevens is Fire and Flame and Assassins, and certainly they're great. Joe LeDuc, all great days. Again, Joe LeDuc's run was 78, 79.
But he
did
had a
come
hell
in
of a run, though.
Yeah, but we're doing the 80s.
No, I was saying for next week. You're fine, Randy.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Him for sure. And then Best of Memphis in the 90s, as we put the graphic back up as I read this list, is I did put Jerry Lawler again. He was Unified World Champion some parts of the 90s. Jeff Jarrett, Bill Dundee, Eddie Gilbert, Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert, Brian Christopher, Spellbinder, PG-13, the entire Smoky Mountain versus USWA program, Sid Vicious, the Moondogs, Miss Texas, Randy Hales, and Brandon Baxter for the Power Pro days. So that's.
What about Billy Travis?
Billy Travis, I would think Billy could be in the late 80s or the 90s as well.
What about Eric Embry when he came back from Dallas?
I'd never put him on. No.
But even that
not on my list.
Tennessee, even that Texas versus Tennessee thing that went.
Nothing about him will not one good thing will ever be of Eric Embry on a list of mine, because if it was downtown, Bruno and Doug Gilbert and many other people would put out a hit on me. I guarantee you. Not going to say anything good about Eric Embry.
Okay.
Period. Sheep herders, absolutely. In the 80s, drew a lot of money, money. And I did mention Coco, who started wrestling in 78 or 79 and was around for a long time. Certainly, I think Coco is deserved. Who else did I leave out of the 90s list?
Boy, I'll tell you. Well, we had for a short period of time, we had Steve Austin in there. We had, some of the crew that had come up from Dallas. I'm trying to think.
We had The Undertaker, of course, in 89. But at that point, we're saying the best of top guys at the time. Obviously they outdid everybody, on a national basis, just fantastic. So I had the Moondogs on the 80s and 90s both.
You remember a guy in the 90s, and he was, and I know he was in some main event stuff with Lawler, and I always thought that he could go places, but unfortunately he had demons and had problems. Was a guy named Chris Champion. He was a good wrestler and did well in
very good.
But unfortunately, he internally imploded. Let's just put it that way. But I always thought Chris Champion was a good wrestler.
He exploded. He really did. And even though he had a main event program that's on YouTube, and it was very, very good with Lawler as a heel, him as a baby, but very good, excellent guy. But as far as a top guy, and Brooks is saying, and other people saying, the Freebirds, and the Freebirds for Bill Watts, national run great, for Georgia great. They started in Memphis and in the 80s.
Actually, they started for Nick
in the 70s, and then came here in 79.
They had fake IDs that showed that they were 18 and they were 17 and 16 and wrestling on Wednesday nights in Nashville at the Fairgrounds Arena.
Very interesting choices as well. Wonder what happened to my man Pat. He went away, and he has not come back, has he?
I think he had some NyQuil fried chicken that was delivered to his room, and I think it probably put him to sleep. Have you heard about that, Randy?
No.
The FDA, the Federal Drug Administration, today issued a warning to the public to not fry their chicken or bake their chicken or broil their chicken in NyQuil. It's a thing that's been making the internet, and I don't know what the deal. Apparently, when NyQuil reaches a point of heat, it, creates a hallucinogenic thing, and that people have been frying chicken and broiling chicken, barbecuing chicken, and instead of using barbecue sauce, they used NyQuil. And hey, listen, people from the time that people existed, from the time they were cavemen, I guess, have been looking for ways to get high. But this is a thing that it's been so misused and abused in the country because of what's going on TikTok, is that people are cooking their chicken in NyQuil, that the Federal Drug Administration issued a warning today, nationwide. I won't say worldwide, but nationwide, warning people not to use NyQuil in preparing chicken. Can you believe that?
That's the craziest thing. That's the craziest thing I have ever heard of in my life.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both.
Now, I want to go back to something you were talking about earlier, and we'll get into real quick comparing radio programmers to wrestling bookers. So when wrestling bookers, like when Dundee left here and he took the rock and roll and cornet with him, I was curious as you were talking about that. You usually completely clean. You said you completely clean the station out within a year. Did you have a group of radio talent like a booker would that had made money with you and your stations in the past?
Absolutely.
That would follow you around the country. We have 5 or 6 minutes left, so just talk about that a little bit.
When I left Nashville and went to Phoenix, I took 2 of my talent. BJ Harris went with me, who is now a morning guy. It's the #1 morning show with his partner on Alice in Denver on KALC. Alice at 108 in Denver with BJ Harris. He was from Baxter, Tennessee. I took him with me. He was at Kicks 104. I brought him to Phoenix. He did night stuff out there and just exploded with totally a great talent and somebody great to work with. Coyote McLeod. I hired Coyote McLeod 3 different times in 3 different radio stations. So,
hey, did he ever do Louisville radio?
No, that's Coyote Calhoun.
Okay.
There's a story behind all that between Johnny Randolph and Scott Shannon. They got into a little who could name Coyote first, and Scott sort of usurped him on it, and Randolph said, well, to hell with that SOB. I'm going to name my guy Coyote anyway. And Coyote Calhoun in Louisville was as successful in Louisville as Coyote McLeod was in Nashville. I mean, they were, and plus we had him on the air one time in Nashville one night for an event on Kicks 104. We were doing a big concert deal, and we put them together as a team at night, even though they were both at that time doing mornings. And that is the only show I've ever aired on any of my radio stations in 53 years that I thought, oh my God, I'm going to lose my license, because I didn't know it at the time because I wasn't in the studio until later in the evening. And by the time I got there, they were LSU drunk, meaning they started early and kept going late. And some of the things that got said on the radio, I just am thankful to God that we didn't have podcasts or people recording things every day on that. But yes, to answer your question, absolutely. I've got a guy right now on 92.7's been with us for 25 years. Bobby Knight, he was in Memphis at 103.3 in Memphis. I met him when I was at WMPS back in the day. I took him to Phoenix to do afternoons. Put him into Huntsville, and now he's on our stations. And he was a talent in Nashville for many years as well. Won DJ of the Year in the Best of Nashville for like 14 years in a row. Great talent, still with us. But to answer your question, there were core guys that you just knew that they would come and they would help bring the atmosphere, the culture, the way it's supposed to be done with them. And unlike being the boss and having it filtered down to the staff and to the air talent, you had members of the staff that were already there, been there, done that, knew how to do it, that would lift that job off the manager, where the manager could do more important things and things that had to be done on the top end to turn things around. You had talent within the talent that was teaching the talent how to be talent. And I think that's true of wrestling too.
Should be worried because Brooks is. Should we worry about Pat?
He had something
Michael?
to come up with his daughter, I think, and his daughter, is going to school in Chattanooga at Baylor. But no, I don't think we have to be worried. I hope we don't. But if he's listening, we may want to give him a call when we get off the air, though, just in case.
Yeah. So we'll call him after we get off the air, Brooks, and that's a good idea for sure. I have a question because I just like to just talking a little radio to you, and I know you have to talk that all day, every day. But in the Memphis market, I was wondering because I always liked the way he identified himself. You got the jinker in your speaker. That's George Klein on blah, 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 radio in Memphis, Tennessee. Did George Klein, who in later in life was on the Elvis channel on Sirius Radio number 75, did George Klein, was he a big deal at any other markets besides Memphis, Tennessee?
Well, back in those days in radio, you had Radio Star. You remember the song that came out in 1983, right after MTV went on the air, called "Video Killed the Radio Star." It never did, because radio stars they're still radio stars today. We have a radio star in our building at Fun Radio. We bought WREB. You're familiar with B 107 FM, or I'm trying to read what popped up on my screen. B 107 FM is classic country. We have a guy named Archie Anderson who's been on that particular frequency on that radio station when it was just an AM since 1974. And he's a radio star in this town. Everybody knows Archie. Archie is you don't have to say a second name. You don't have to identify him every song. Everybody knows Archie. When he opens his mouth, everybody knows who he is. Great guy, fantastic teammate. Love him like a brother. He's very close. He and I have gotten to be very close. And every market seems to have one of those. In Chattanooga, you had a morning man named Luther. You only knew him by one name. He was on WDEF radio. He was Luther, and he epitomized that town. Knoxville had the same thing. Louisville, you mentioned Coyote Calhoun. Birmingham, Doug Layton and Tommy Charles are magical names in Birmingham. But in Memphis, George Klein was the epitome of Caucasian radio in Memphis, Tennessee. There was none better. There was none that ever achieved a higher status than George Klein on WHBQ. We love George. Just fabulous person. Deserved every accolade he ever got. On the black side of things at WDIA radio, Rufus Thomas, who later became a musician and wrote "Do the Funky Chicken," among other things, is the dad of Carla Thomas, is the uncle of Whitney Houston. Nobody, to my knowledge, ever exceeded, although there were some other great stars in Memphis, don't get me wrong, but Rufus Thomas was that guy. And I think you could go around the country, and in just about every market, New Orleans, Skinny Bobby Cheney at WTIX in New Orleans, legendary. You can go to just about any market. Jay Thomas at Ways in Charlotte, WAYS. Jay Thomas ever later became the guy on Mork and Mindy. He was on the Mork and Mindy show, and many times was on David Letterman's show. Jay Thomas was the epitome of Charlotte radio. I think every medium to large market has or had one of those stars. There's still some around, not as many, but still some around.
I can tell you, and I looked for the picture and couldn't find one, but we have one, thank God. The one we got here in Jonesboro, Arkansas, is no doubt. He's a RH guy. And Brandon Baxter is at the level in the town. Jonesboro's now near 100,000 people. And Brandon has taken the fact that he was over with TV5 Wrestling and in Power Pro, and the general manager of the radio station, when Brandon did interviews, said, "Hey, if wrestling ever went away," and we thought it never would, but he said, "You'd be a great radio guy." And the guy mentored him, and the worst and the rest is history. And now he's the most, maybe the most famous radio guy in the history of the town, and he does uh, works closely with Arkansas State University and the Red Wolves, and he's the in game deal. And where wrestling helped him, and we had this conversation uh, just the other day about getting over. Brandon knew how to get over. He absolutely knew how to get over, and not just with wrestling. He knew how to get over. Now, he says that at there's a new ownership group, been there for 10 years, but he said that by the time they got there and took over, Brandon was already over. Absolutely, as the radio guy and the voice of the station, all that, he was already over. But these folks, nothing wrong with small. Obviously, I love small market stations. Bobby Caldwell is the guy's name, and he started in Wynn, Arkansas, and he's been very successful, and he has now stations all over the state. But he did not get Brandon over. Brandon got Brandon over, but he did not see the process. Does that make sense? He didn't see the process of how Brandon got over.
Yeah, how it happened.
But now that he is over, he values it absolutely 100%, and he sees it, but he wasn't there in the process.
You get guys like Brandon that get themselves over, and in the whether it be the wrestling business, the radio business. I always thought the two careers are parallel. Ever since I was a baby DJ, I've always thought that they parallel each other. How many wrestlers can you go to back, especially in the territory days, where in one market they were just God? And that's best you can say it. But every market every territory had one. Right. You know, Pat O'Connor in St. Louis. My gosh, what Pat O'Connor was to wrestling in St. Louis to what Stan Musial was to the Cardinals. Right. That's how big Pat O'Connor was. Absolutely. And in Dallas, you know, the Von Erichs. You talk about the Von Erich family. There was a great radio morning show on KVIL in Dallas for 50 years named Ron Chapman. And Ron Chapman he wasn't a comedian. He wasn't especially huge personality, but he was the guy that when you wanted to know what was going on in Dallas, Texas, you turned to 103.9 and you listened to KVIL to Ron Chapman in the morning. And by the time you got to work, you knew everything was going on. And he was over, as were the Von Erichs. And they're in the same way, John Lander in Houston at 93Q, the same way as Paul Bosch had that territory over. I mean, every market had that guy or that team or that girl. And I think wrestling is the same way, especially back in the territory days.
Frank mentioned Dennis Rogers in Jonesboro at KNEA and KBTM and different places throughout the years. And when Brandon started his radio career, one of his mentors as far as learning the production side of things and that sort of thing was Dennis Rogers. And there was a guy named Jerry J that was great. Man, we've gone over a little bit. We'll have a big show next week. This was a lot of fun. Final words from you, Michael, and then I'll do all my pluggaroos.
I love your new set. I ate onion rings at dinner tonight in your honor.
Yay!
And I got to tell you, I love the new set. I know you're doing well. Look at that.
How quick is that, man?
What a star. But I just want to tell you, as always, Randy, I value or appreciate your friendship. I have a lot of acquaintances, and I was talking at dinner tonight about this. I have a lot of acquaintances in life that I do appreciate, and I appreciate their camaraderie and their friendship. But I only have a handful of friends. I have people that I just,
I can relate to that. Let's before I get to my plugs, let's just show you one more picture because you got in a little late from your trip, and we deep dive into Flex Kavana, Dwayne Johnson's run in Memphis. And recently there was a picture on the Rock's social media and also on Jerry Lawler's social media. We were showing 1996 Flex Kavana, and now Adam, if we have that picture, if we could show that now, and hopefully That's Flex Kavana when he was here in '96. How about the Lawler, um, or the recent picture with Lawler and Dwayne Johnson? Do we have that one up there? There we go.
There you go. There you go. You know,
That's in the last few weeks. What do you think about that, Michael?
well, first of all, I will wish I had stock in the Jerry Curl company back when Dwayne was starting out, because he was using a lot of it. You know, I'm looking at Jerry, and I know, and I'm one of these people that have a great deal of admiration and respect for Jerry, not only as a wrestler but as a human being and as a talent. He is so talented in so many areas. But I have noticed, and I'm going to say this, and I hope we don't get any bad feedback, but I have noticed that since Brian's unfortunate death, that Jerry has started to show his age a bit. And for years and decades, Jerry Lawler was in the movie about Andy Kaufman as himself, because the producers of the movie realized that he looked the same then as he did, 28 years prior, 26 years prior. And he has maintained his exuberance and his youthful look for a long time. But and God forbid that anyone loses a sibling. You're not supposed to outlive your children, and I think Jerry has that unfortunately has taken its toll on him. God bless him.
One of the things, Brooke, that Pat or Michael mentioned it earlier, and I did not see the production note, but Pat, when he went away, said, "I got to go." Said, "I got to help Meg, his daughter, with something." So I think it was a family situation. He had to go away. Thanks a lot, Michael. I appreciate you being on tonight. Hopefully, you can be back on next week.
Looking forward to it. I'm going to try my best the rest of the season to at least get an hour and a half in every Tuesday. God love you. I love the fact that you've got your new setup. It looks fantastic. You look great in the way you look on camera. So keep it up, Randy. And as a friend,
Hank and Hercules.
Hank and Hercules. I love it.
All right. Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you very much, Randy. Have a great evening. God love you, everybody. God bless.
Thank you, Michael. The first thing I want to plug is tell everybody the new YouTube channel, Randall Hales. It's Randall Hales. Search for Randall Hales. I lost my last YouTube channel. I need subscribers so I can go live on YouTube. Randall Hales, Randall Hales, Randall Hales. There's the link right there, guys. If every single solitary one of you can click on that sucker right now and subscribe to that channel, I'd appreciate it very much. All right, the Randall Hales YouTube channel. I've got a few things up. I'll put the Monday night show and the Tuesday night show up every week, and we can keep it in the archive and keep it where it's easy to get to. So if you've missed the show, you can go check it out. So that's absolutely something we'll do, and we're doing it right now. Randall Hales. Now, I'm back at 953theticket.com. The front row with Bud Rose, the ticket. It will be tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock Central. Certainly, I'm here every Monday night for the Power Hour, the Power Pro Wrestling Watch Party. The show we saw last night that's in the archives at Randall Hill's YouTube page, if you missed it, was fantastic. This next show is as good or better than the one we saw yesterday, and you got to watch that, as I have the date here. It's show number 32, November the 21st, 1998. Certainly everything you can catch me on Facebook at Randy Hills at the Power Pro Wrestling Facebook page, and also so you can catch me at the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame at RB Hills on Twitter, and obviously the classic Memphis Wrestling YouTube page, and the Randall, gotta do that, the Randall Hills Facebook page. You gotta catch me on that. We're all over the place as we're keeping the my mission of keeping the legacy of Memphis Wrestling alive. Want to make sure that we covered a bunch of stuff. Want to make sure the producer of this show, Adam Dunn, if he's still awake there, wanted to see if Adam had final comments. Then we're going to get out of here. Adam?
No, I don't have too much. I really enjoyed the show tonight. I really enjoyed you and Michael going back and forth on things. I thought that was a really good last hour of the show. And of course, having the deep dive of the Memphis, seeing his first match and his last match, just how quickly he progressed just in the short amount of time that he was in Memphis, and of course becoming, probably the biggest box office draw in history. Who would ever
not
know
just
just in
wrestling.
1996? Right,
Yeah.
exactly. Who gets from 1996 that first line ever on TV about being, naughty by nature or violent by decision or whatever, all the way to what he is now. Just unbelievable. Great stuff.
Man, we got a lot of comments today, and that's fantastic. I mean, really fantastic, because I appreciate everybody doing that. Again, Randall Hills on YouTube. Help a brother out. Subscribe to my channel, and we will post content all the time. We'll be back on these shows that you can find on Facebook, on Twitter, and in the archives. We can certainly on the YouTube channel. And Al says, great show as always. Hope everyone has a safe and blessed week. And Mike said that he thought it was a great show as well. You guys are so important and allow me to do that. And you listen and you comment and you're active in the show. And I appreciate it very much. For Michael St. John and Pat Trammell, for Adam Dunn, I'm Randy Hill saying good night, everybody. It's going to be hot tomorrow.
Living the Dream, Memphis Wrestling, The Randy Hill Story, is available now at randyhillsmemphiswrestling.com.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hill, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammell, and special guests.